Okay, looks like I am live. So, um, hello, welcome to A Capture Crime. Thank you for being here. You are here. So yeah, I wanted to go live because I am wanting to, or I said, I went live on Monday this week when we found out the new information about Bryan Kohberger filing the petition. And so I said, we kind of discussed it in like a little bit of the New York Times or like a lot of the New York Times article that reported, but the actual petition hadn't come out yet. And so I said I would come back on with um, the petition. And then I was thinking it'd be good to just walk through it together, like, um, and or at least out loud. Like I'm hoping people join because like I'm hoping it can maybe be like a Friday, like fun day, like happy hour or something. I just feel like it feels good that it's Friday evening. I don't want to make this be like I'm lecturing. I like want to make it be like it might be kind of fun. But so that's my hopes. Yeah, so I like did review the petition a couple of times and then, took some notes, then wrote down some stuff that I wanted to follow up on and other questions and stuff that I had. So I uh yeah, I'm gonna be approaching it like a certain way. I talked to it like with ChatGPT about this, and like so I'm gonna try to start out with like reading through it, then trying to break down like each of the like sections of it. This is part of the petition. And we'll look at the legal side of things and then kind of brainstorm together about what it's saying, and then yeah. So, anyways, oh, and also, there is like already a new update to uh, this case, and it is Hitler, the judge that the petition went to, the same judge that uh, was Bryan's judge when he was like during the criminal proceedings or whatever. And so, yeah, Hitler granted um, I don't know if it's a motion or an order or something, but basically he's like appointing counsel to Bryan Kohberger, and he's like allowing Bryan to file or to like get a help from a lawyer. So that's cool, and that is filed. So I'll like speak a little bit more about that like at the end, maybe. I have like a little outline here just because I am trying to stay on track, but also this outline took me like so long, and I should have just probably gone live, like and not been like, oh, I need a perfect outline, but okay, cool. So all right. So I figured, yeah, just start with starting to go over it. And it is, so yeah, I'll pull that up. I'll share that screen with you guys. I hope everyone had a good week. I had a good week. One of my best friends just came back into town after being gone since last December. So pretty excited about that. They just got back into town yesterday, but yeah. Alrighty. So, oh wait, yeah, this is what I was gonna do. This is better. Yeah, I think that's probably better. If there's like a way to, oh shit, what just happened? What is this? Oh shit, no, that's not what I want to do either. Okay, this is how I'm gonna go about this part. So, all right, so yeah, just to start with very basics, and I'm no lawyer. Like, I do think that I have like a research type approach mind to things. So, I think that this will be like a good analysis. But yeah, I'm no lawyer and I don't know like all the details, but I think it is interesting to kind of think about some of these claims that he's making. And I feel like a lot of people are just kind of like brushing them off or like making it seem like it's a lie or that they're probably like he's probably like not reporting like accurately or whatever. So um So I figured, yeah, it's good to be not biased. But anyways, so the type of filing it is, it's so like when he was on trial or when he was about to go to trial, that was obviously like a criminal case, and it was involving the red rums of the Ford college students. And so when he pled guilty with the plea deal, then like that case was closed. And so what this petition is doing is it's actually a civil case because it's reporting, it's not like about his trial. It's not him saying something happened during this trial and he's trying to go back on that. That's like more of like a direct appeal. But this is called, what he filed is the as you can see here, it says the affidavit of facts in support of a post conviction petition. And so that all comes from Post Conviction Relief Act, or the Post Conviction Procedure Act, and that involves post conviction relief, and that is what Bryan is asking for. And he is, I guess, like the difference between a like direct appeal and a post conviction appeal. Or wait, hold on, sorry, I'm just like a little bit. Damn it! Oh wait, hold on. Okay, here we go. So the Post Conviction Procedure Act is the law that creates the procedures, and then the petition is what like Bryan or Kohberger filed, which is like basically someone filing something that's using the process of the Procedure Act, Post Conviction Procedure Act, and then the Post Conviction Relief is um, I guess what he's asking the court for. He's like wanting the court to remedy this post conviction problems that he's having. And like the difference between like a direct appeal is like it's usually evidence that's like preserved in the case. And it's like um separate, so okay, can raise issues outside of the original record. So yeah, what's like this is like new information that he is reporting that was never reported in his criminal case, and so it's changed into a civil case because it's like regarding receiving like a fair trial, like constitutional rights type stuff. So it is like a pretty distinction, and like I guess people might be like, well, why didn't he just file like a normal appeal if he's saying this stuff? And because of his plea agreement, he was not allowed to appeal like anything that had been happening like in his trial, and like I remember like hearing that and hearing them say that like when he took the plea deal, and I was just like, that's not. By the way, this is Leela, my cat. Unless if you haven't met her before, but she actually just got a grooming yesterday, and oh my goodness, she looks so good. It's only the second time I've had to bring her to like the groomer, but she's just getting like a little bit older. So I thought that she's usually really good, like she's really good at like staying clean and stuff. But then now that she's older, like she started to get mad at it a little bit. So and then she tries to like I can tell that I'm upsetting her when I'm trying to like brush her. So I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna bring her to a groomer, and then I can still like have that loving bond with her without her being like, oh my god. Anyways, TMI probably about the cat, but okay, yeah. So then so what I was gonna say is that it was when that happened, and like when, because okay, not to be, I sorry, I'm like not trying to like put my opinion out there right away so like abruptly, but I did feel, and I saw like during all of the like pretrial hearings and the motions that were being filed up until Bryan's plea agreement last summer, like a year ago today, like or no one, it was like a year ago with it, like this week or something. And they Damn it. Oh, duh, sorry, I'm like, yeah, they, a post-conviction petition. It's one of the only remaining legal avenues available to challenge a conviction, and it's usually based on constitutional or other issues that weren't resolved through a direct appeal. And um, I mean, okay, maybe I'll talk about this later because I don't know if this is like the best time to bring up that example, but it did really feel like there were times that I felt like Ann Taylor was I feel like she did a good job. That, Ann Taylor was Bryan Kohberger's defense attorney, or like his main one. I think he had like 4 different counsels that were really working with him on that case for the most part, but they um I think did a really good job, like, just documenting and putting into record all of the issues and the problems that were coming up during the trial that were not able to be like remedied, because in my opinion, and like I'd like to have someone else to maybe like talk about this, or see what other people know, or like have information about, but I feel like it's like they're like, oh my god. Mm, yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, I sorry. Oh my god, I'm like, I should not have like, I smoked like a lot right just before I came live, which is dumb. But hey, it's like Monday, Friday, or whatever. Um, so but yeah, anyways, sorry, get back to that. Like, the I thought the defense, and specifically Ann Taylor, did a good job. So like, for example, there was the issue that was coming up. There was multiple issues that came up, and okay, I'm gonna actually write this down, and so I can find evidence of this too, because um yeah, so there was like, it was that, um okay, Ann Taylor putting into record uh significant issues, significant issues that were coming up in the pretrial stuff. Um, so I will try to find a couple of examples of that. The one that I can think of right now, um, was when she started receiving all of those like huge data dumps of just like, like massive amounts of information, and all disorganized, and it almost feels like a tactic from the state to do stuff like this, like withhold discovery as long as they can, and then like all at once just dump like, like trillions of, I don't know how those bytes work, but I mean, this is like, well, that's the other thing I'm gonna find out too. Like, I want to get a like grasp of like what would it look like in on paper, like, and is it necessary to like, I mean, and also like it is kind of bullshit. Like, and I feel like again with like the way that the prosecution seems to approach things so many times, it's like they are just finding ways to, like they aren't. I feel like they don't actually look for like justice. They're just like looking for ways to win, and it like they don't base it off of like what you would consider just to be like, normal like assessments of like something that might be good or bad or whatever. But yeah, so I want to find out how much actual information is, but I do remember her getting a shit ton of a data drop, and she told Hitler, she was like, I am not going to she straight up said, I remember, well, actually, yeah, I want to find out this time. So because there was one time I remember her specifically saying to Hitler, like, he kind of got, he always was pretty rude to her, in my opinion, to Ann Taylor. Like, I really don't like Hitler, to be honest. Like, I mean, a lot of people are like, he's fair, but I'm like, man, like, maybe, like, I guess he's like sort of kind of fair, but like, he's a fucking judge. He should be like not this biased and mean and rude and just, I mean, he made so many bad rulings, which I mean, of course, it's my opinion, but it's like, I don't even think he knows about this information. Like, how can he be making these callings, you know? So, and I'll get into that, like, as we go down into the different claims that Bryan is, like, reporting. But, but she said, she was like, I'm not going to be effective counsel, um, if I don't have more time to go over all of this information that they just gave to me, and none of it's organized. And they were looking for like a specific document, which I believe was the document that was uh that I believe that the state was trying to hide. And that was like the geofencing information, and like what Detective Mallory had done with analyzing some data that seemed super shady. And there was like, I mean, they shouldn't even be able to accept that into record. Like, that's a major deal. And like, so she was looking for, yeah, I don't know, like, it is, hey Dragon, yes. Happy Friday. I said it's like Friday fun day. Cheers to you. I made a little, like, actually, I'm going to add some more cider to this little drink of mine. I was like, oh my gosh, like, I don't want it. Like, I always get so anxious kind of about going live, and then I like put it off, and then I just like end up not doing it. And then, like, I'm like, dude, it doesn't have to be so serious. Like, this doesn't mean like you don't have to be giving a presentation right now. Like, it can also just be fun and like chill too. So that's what I'm trying to do right now. So cheers. While also going over like some of this legal stuff. But how are you guys doing? How are you doing? I just was like starting to talk about um the petition that Bryan filed, and how I thought that Ann Taylor did a nice job putting into record the times that she was not receiving like fair rulings. And that was like when discovery was being hidden, like they were stealing really like significant evidence and like the discovery process from them, and like never really like showed up. 83 degrees in Seattle, is that like not really normal? That sounds kind of nice. Like, it is okay. So like, I live in Minneapolis, and for the last like week, maybe even like week and a half, it's been super hot and humid. Like, in the 90s, and it's like super sticky, and everything's just like, ugh, it's gross, you know? And then just yesterday it started like raining a lot. And right now it is 68 degrees out. And I'm like, wow, that's a major difference. You know what I mean? Like, literally like a 30-degree difference. So 83 sounds pretty nice. Um, but I bet it's probably not as hot in Seattle because of the like ocean effect or something. Whatever, they start to whine at 80. Grow a pair. I mean, I like, one of my best friends used to live down in Phoenix, Arizona, and I went down to visit her like on some like spring break of mine or something, which was like a pretty hot time of the year for them down there. And it was like 115 degrees. And I was like, this is outrageous. Like, that's really freaking hot. Um, I wonder where like the hottest places are like on the earth. I mean, in terms of like, yeah, well, probably by the equator, I would assume. But anyways, getting off topic a little bit, but yeah. So I'm excited to kind of see what comes out from, um. Well, no, yeah. Okay. Wait. I'm gonna find Ann Taylor stuff where she put into record Hitler screwing up, because I kind of feel like well, whatever. Okay. I'm not going to get into that right now because I'm not even onto the first claim. So, um, are you pretty interested in the Kohberger case, Dragon? Going into those records of shit going wrong during his pretrial shit. During BK's pretrial shit. Okay. All right. And then, all right. So I'm just going to start off. I can't really remember. I think I really just went off kind of a little bit of a tangent there, but cool. So I think right now I'm just going to start off with reading over the where someone would interview and ask why, not that it really matters. Yeah, no, I totally agree. Well, and actually that is like a lot of the notes that I took too. Like, well, so he did like Kohberger did give an interview to the New York Times. Is that what you're talking about? Like why he filed this petition? And I think it does matter. Like I think it's like because I like feel strongly about everyone having an opportunity at a fair trial, and I I think it's definitely like just worth getting like making sure that that's not happening. You know what I mean? Because I mean I've been following this case. Like this is by far the case that I think I have followed the most closely. Oh yeah, yeah, like it was the New York it was yeah, it was they published the New York Times published an article on Monday, and apparently like that was the only interview that Kohberger had like ever given. Like since he's been arrested, he has never spoken to the media or made a public statement or anything. And on Monday was the first publication about like an interview that he actually granted someone. And yeah, I wish I could just see the transcript of that interview, but I think it was mostly just focused the interview was mostly focused on what he was filing, which is this petition that we're going over. And I think he basically, from what I remember in the New York Times article, is the answers that he was giving during that seemed to be pretty like um they were kind of stuck to the legal stuff. Like he was like, that is going to come out during this court case or whatever. And I think that that is like, I am excited to see where things go. Like everyone's been like saying, oh, this isn't going to go anywhere. Like this stuff, like, it's like a 0.01% chance that he might get like a new trial or whatever. But I, I do feel like honestly, like, I mean, I know everyone's going to be like, whatever, you're stupid. Like, there's no way. You just wait and see. And, I mean, yeah, they're probably right. But honestly, I feel like, if justice is real and things are right with this world, like, I think that we will at least get a couple of more, like, hearings or like testimonies or filings, like, regarding what he just filed. And then that will be giving us like more evidence to like help us actually understand like what he's alleging and like if he can prove any of that and like what it would take to prove that stuff. So, and like that's kind of what I was like basing my like notes review on was kind of about those different factors, kind of like what we know now, what we like don't know yet, and like blah 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 blah. So, but yeah, so I'll just start with reading in full this. It's a pretty short, so it's like this page right here that you see, and that's his handwriting, and which to me, okay, here's something that's kind of interesting too, and this might not be significant, but I'm pretty surprised that he is filing paperwork that's handwritten like this. And like, I mean, that just reminds me of someone that is in prison and doesn't have access to like, technology and like computers and stuff. And actually, like in the DOC, they do actually have access to these tablets and to getting like JPay like on their little whatever storage devices, and but where he's living, like none of that has been updated. So like he doesn't have access to technology. Like I mean, I'll get into that later too, but that is another thing that he brought up in this claim too, is that he was like from I guess there's like a discrepancy between he's saying that he was basically being lied to and like in a way like maybe intimidated or like in order to like plead guilty by his counsel telling him that um things were going to be a certain way like in the prison system, like for example like what exactly death row would look like, um and then like what he could expect from life without parole, and like what that would afford him like in the immediate future. So and that's another claim that I will also get into. So anyways, I'll just stop laughing about that and then I'll just start reading this, and then I think I'll just yeah, like I said, read it in full first once, and then go back through each claim and kind of break it down and like hopefully have a little bit of a discussion about it too. So meow meow meow. Okay, so this is the affidavit of facts in support of post-conviction petition for the state of Idaho, the county of Ada. And it says Bryan C. Kohberger, being first duly sworn on oath, deposes and says, it is hereby declared that during attorney-client discussions, most of which included all members of Bryan C. Kohberger's immediate family, petitioner was convinced to falsely confess to capital murder and felony burglary by coercion, disinformation, false promises, and withholding of exculpatory discovery. The following is material to the inception of the plea. So he's saying like the following information is like gonna be what he is claiming that backs up that paragraph that he just yes, I love that you are a big supporter of constitutional rights for everyone. That is I agree. um and it like blows my mind like how much like our government does break these constitutional rights, and like the way that they really just kind of just don't even acknowledge what they're doing or that they're even doing anything wrong. And like I think that that happened a lot in this case in terms of some of the like investigative science that they were using, and also like I just mentioned like a lot of holes in the geodata that they were using to place Kohberger at the scene. And I feel like we should all be worried about like how much information the government has on us. Like, I don't like the fact that the government was just able to go pull a bunch of like information for to find out who was in a certain area like at a certain time and break it down like that way. Like the government shouldn't be able to just know where we are at all times whenever they want, just because they like file, you know, a request to have a search warrant or something. Like no, like you actually need to prove that shit. Like you can't just be like, hey, give me all this information. Like also like, yeah, like, hey, like let's just do all this crazy shit with DNA. Like, I mean, it's like they're misusing DNA too. And there's actually a really good channel. So it really ramped up after 2001, like torturing people. Oh, well, actually, that's interesting because you know, like I was like a trained and was a forensic psychologist and like worked in prison and stuff. And like I was, it would like overlapped a little bit with the like correctional community, like the CEOs and stuff, which like anyways, but there's like a lot of interrogators that were like psychologists and stuff that worked for the government that were using like, you know, psychops on like to yeah, to torture people that were like, you know, yeah, like Guantanamo Bay, like that was crazy too. Like a lot, I mean, and like I feel like our government so easily does that because they're like they can just kind of make a story about how someone's like this, you know, horrible monster. So like we shouldn't even care that their constitutional rights were messed around with during these proceedings because he's a horrible person and he would have been caught anyways. And it's like, well, no, like the government can actually use this information against us, and like we need them to prove, and also they don't need to have all of our DNA information. Like, I mean, that's getting down to like, that reminds me of like Nazi shit, of like, what is it, epigenetics, or not epigenetics, the bad one that starts with like an E, where they like basically try to like create a human race that is like superior. So like, I mean, that's basically what the Nazis were doing, was like they were like, hey, like this is a superior race here, like the Aryan looking whatever. And so in order to make sure that we keep building our society to be stronger and to have all these like eugenics, yes, thank you, bless, yeah, that's not good. Eugenics is definitely not good. And I feel like that once you start getting into the government having that close of access on like your DNA and like where you are at all times, like there is like reason to be concerned, because we know like what governments have done with that type of information in the past, like such as like, the Nazis. But I mean, that's just like a simple example that everyone knows. But I mean, there's so many more that also have to do with like, I mean, our government overstep. I mean, I can't even like, I don't want to go off on like a tangent like right now about it, but like it's just, ugh, whatever. I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm not going to go off on that. Oh, in the 1920s, Supreme Court supported sterilizing developmental people. Oh yeah, like people with disabilities. Yeah, well, like, um, yeah, like that's super controversial, and I think sometimes they still like. Well, I know. Well, I mean, that is like, I didn't know about a 1920 finding that said that, but I feel I feel like I've noticed a like push, like especially in social like work and stuff, to really try to get certain populations to not procreate as much, make sure that they get on, this IUD for the next 10 years so they can't get pregnant. And it's like, because why? Because you don't want any more of that person out there. Like, I don't think that, I mean, it's like we're human, we're all human. So it's not like we should be, yeah, we don't need to pass some tests in order to fucking reproduce ourselves. You know what I mean? So, so that's too bad that they did that. And like, yeah, we have to be concerned about that shit, and we have to look out for everyone else when, and like call it out when it's happening. Like it's happening right now, even though it's happening to a monster. Like that doesn't mean that he doesn't deserve constitutional rights still. But yeah. So okay. Um. All right. So the following is material. Okay. So it says, so the first claim number one, is the council's failure to inform petitioner of exculpatory discovery received during plea discussions, namely clumps of unknown hair found in Ethan Chapin's hands, as well as a failure of further inquiry. And I took notes on that, but when we come back and go through each of the claims, I'll expand on that. So claim number two is the petitioner was convinced that actual guilt was not an important factor in considering plea acceptance. Death row was imminent, and advised to lie. Petitioner was to gain a legal victory in entering a false plea. So like that to me is like pretty significant. Like, I mean, he's basically like, they straight up told me to lie, and that told me that my actual innocence didn't matter. And I'm like, and honestly, I wonder if they did, because sometimes like I have ethical issues, like, or I used to have like issues when I worked in government, agencies and organizations and stuff, where there would be some really like gray boundaries in terms of like, yeah, ethical and legal, like like I guess policies and guidelines, and I guess even just like, yeah, policy, like you have to do it, and like a certain way. And like I um, would I mean, because there's shit that happens in our government that is so dumb sometimes, and it's like, okay, like, I'm sorry, it's really dumb because it's the government, and so it's, like, a bunch of extra stuff, but a in actuality, it's still gonna be a better deal if you go with this, but it's you just kinda have to it's, like, almost like kind of being like, the system, so you're like, "Hey, like, tell the system this because it's gonna be better for you." And, like, as a lawyer, you are supposed to advocate for what's best for your client. And so if you are a counselor and like, you know that death row is really bad, and it basically means that, you're being put to death, so taking a plea deal to not be on death row and to not be put to death is probably a better deal, even if it's an innocent man, because he was being like the trial was like not, really being completely like they weren't really receiving a fair trial. And so I do wonder if this was like a discussion or if this was like maybe a tactic or an approach that the defense decided to take, but that Ann Taylor, like, even maybe, I'm sure everyone like that is like a lawyer and stuff is going to be like, hell no, like a lawyer would never do that. That puts your like, your license in jeopardy. And while that is all true, and that's definitely like things that I, had to think about too, like with licensure in my history with, forensic psych and, like I said, different guidelines and policies, but um like, there was times that I would break a policy because I was like, "Dude, me not breaking that policy is literally gonna result in someone's death." Like, I have an example actually, like, where that happened, but well, I don't really wanna go into it. I guess I'll see I'm gonna take a note, and I'll be like, next time maybe I can share a little story time about, like, a little traumatic thing that happened where I was like, a part of me died and, like, definitely a part of my faith and just humanity like died that day because I was like, what are we doing? But anyways, because yeah, so I do feel that like when it does come down to things that are like life and death, and you're making these judgment calls about what's like ethically correct, like I could see where there would be an argument for his defense counsel to be like, this was the best avenue. This was like the safest avenue to get him to where we needed to be because we weren't getting a fair trial like when it was all going down. Anyways, again, tangent there. With, hold on. Explain. All right. And all right. So then, number three claim, I'm tougher than you. What do you mean by that? I mean, I thank you. I like to think I'm tough too, but honestly, I'm not tough. I'm like, and that's why like I get scared when I think I'm tough, or I'm like, or I do stuff that I'm like, I know that this is, this in like my gut knows that this is the right thing to do, and I don't really give a fuck like whatever bureaucracy is telling me what I need to do or whatever. Like I'm looking, I'm more of like person to person type thing, um but I've been super burned for doing that stuff. Like I mean, I've gotten like fired from places and stuff from some of the I mean, that makes me sound really bad. And maybe I'll have a story time about like I don't know. Yeah, if anyone's interested in a story time about like um why I got fired when I like was I guess you could say like maybe bending some of the rules or whatever with some stuff. But anyways, I just feel like Ann Taylor is a pretty like she's always seemed really solid in my eyes, and like the way that she's dealt with this case the whole time, I feel like has been like I've been like really impressed with her. I mean, she doesn't talk much, but I really do respect what she's done with this case up to this point. And if what I've been kind of assuming about her this whole time is true, I feel like there we might be kind of in for like a little bit of a roller coaster ride in terms of like the evidence that's going to start coming out that is like starts to bring to light some of these things that were happening behind these closed doors. So That's kind of exciting. Okay, so number 3 claim, a gross misrepresentation of and promises regarding what a life sentence would immediately afford petitioner, and a gross misrepresentation of death row in Idaho, including an elaborate fabricated story of counsel's horrific experience touring an actual 8x8 death row cell, all communicated to petitioner and his family, allegedly by IDOC through counsel, thus constituting threats and promises made to induce a plea agreement. Hold on, let me share the other page. Okay, yeah, here's the last part of it where he says, through counsel, thus constituting threats and promises made to induce a plea agreement. To induce a plea agreement. Okay, so that is Bryan's petition that he filed. And I think that, yeah, that kind of like piqued my interest a little bit. So I think, yeah, let's go. I'm going to break down each claim a little bit further and like try to evaluate each of his claims. And I don't want to say like legally analyze, but I want to like, critically thinking analyze some of his stuff, and like also what we know already in the past has come up that might be like applicable to some of these things that he's talking about. And also, I'm just curious, like, what other people are thinking in terms of like what people's impressions are of like Bryan and like, I guess, what he's saying like in these filings. Does everyone think that he's like a huge kook, or does anyone think that he might have a case if some of this stuff is true that he's actually alleging in these things? So, and okay, so claim number 1. Claim number 1 is counsel's failure. Well, okay, well, no, I'll say this. So, the things that I thought were noteworthy, like specifically noteworthy about the petition just right off the bat, is I thought it was interesting to hear and significant that he's alleging that his family was always with him when he was talking and considering the plea deal when he was with his counsel and stuff. And if that's true, like, I mean that would be his mom, his dad, and his sisters, I believe, um, or at least one or some of all of them. And if everyone's willing to testify, like under oath, about the things that counsel told Bryan during these plea agreements, like I feel like that would be, I mean, that's kind of, I mean, that's pretty like significant evidence, I would say. And it would be like really, it would be very strange if it would be like, it would just be very strange to see them like alleging, Kohberger and his family alleging them straight up lying to him and telling him a plea, like, a actual innocence, like pleading guilty when you're innocent is not really a big deal, and it's still a legal victory if you take a plea deal. And um, they like, I mean, if the family and Bryan all say that, like, is the defense counsel actually going to sit there and be like, "You're lying, like all of you are lying, that never happened"? And there's also like 4, I feel like, defense counsel that were apparently like at all of these like meetings for going um over that stuff. So I yeah, like, I am really, really, really interested to see, like, what comes out. Like, I mean, because yeah, I feel like I get the vibe that a lot of people just think that he's, like, this super crazy person that just is totally erratic and narcissistic and is doing these things that are just so over the top and it's so selfish. But, like, I mean, I'm actually taking his filings, like, and, like, actually critically, like, I mean, I'm taking them seriously and like believing so far. There's no reason for me to not believe what he's alleging in this affidavit. And I mean, it seems like he's ready to prove this stuff. So I'm really excited to see what starts coming out and how that all goes down. But yeah, and then I think just kind of like summarizing what the stuff of the affidavit that he said is like basically what I heard is that he's saying that he falsely pled guilty because he was coerced, he was misinformed, he was given promises that weren't followed through with, or false promises, and that his counsel withheld exculpatory evidence, which that's super significant too. Um, okay, so yeah, we'll start with the claim number one, which is exactly that, the withholding of the exculpatory evidence. So, okay, I'm just gonna go through so I have like this framework that ChatGPT and I developed. I don't know if you can like, you probably can't read it, but it's like 6 questions that you can kind of prompt to look into. Um, uh, there was a Korean exchange student that had a romantic interest in him, and he was not interested. Yeah, yes, yeah, totally. Actually, I really want to talk to that woman as well because I had like some theories or guesses about like what actually was the real situation behind some of these, I guess, just situations that people are reporting. Oh my god. Hold on, my cat's like trying to climb. Oh, okay. Hold on. I'm sorry, Leela. Look at how nice Leela looks. Say hi to everyone, Leela. Say hi. Say hi, little baby. Doesn't she look good? I love you. Do you want to go up here? Okay. Um, yeah, and it's to me a lot of the information that I was hearing about that Korean exchange student was like it was a nice relationship. Like she didn't really have, at least before all this started coming up, she had not gotten the vibe that he was a psycho and like super scary. Like it sounded like she actually like used him in instances where she felt unsafe and asked him to help her like make things safer. Oh my god, that's so weird. Is that I'm now I'm trying to remember like because did was someone like breaking into her apartment or something? I don't know. That might not be true. Um. Oh yeah, was that like a rumor? Do you guys remember that? No, I'm gonna like look that up too about the um. But yeah, it sounded like they kind of had a nice relationship, like, and but and I think he's just like a little awkward, you know. Um, but yeah, what do you think about the Korean student? Like, how do you what does that tell you about, or I guess like why does that pique your interest, or like why do you think that that might be something that would be? Oh yeah, she did have a romantic interest. I bet. I wonder. Well, yeah, I wonder if he wasn't interested in her too, because it almost sounded like they were getting pretty close enough where it could have been like maybe like romantic, but I feel like they maybe both were a little bit too like, PhDE to like, I guess, act out on some of those feelings maybe. Um, but weird, maybe he was afraid of her. She is very pretty. Um, yeah, like I don't think he was afraid of her. Like I think that they were, I don't know, should we look it up? Let's well, I'm gonna write that on my list of things to do because I'm gonna do some research and then see if I can actually like come up with the actual interviews with her because I'm trying to remember like I mean, since no one ever testified, it's like hard to remember like where all this information was coming from, which is also like what was another kind of shady part about the whole trial and like when it was happening, the pre-motion stuff, because the media was coming out with all these different stories and like it's like information was getting leaked to the media, but it was like obviously coming from the prosecution side or the like state law enforcement side, because like they were like the only ones that had the information. They hadn't even turned over, and like some of it wasn't even true. And like that's the thing that is can be pretty shady, that the government can really like use and do to their favor, is they can like manipulate. Okay, now I forgot what I was gonna say. How is it like possible that I'm like literally in the middle of like a huge like paragraph thing, and then my mind just like blinks out? Um, but anyways, maybe that just okay. Wait, no, but I was gonna look up. Yeah, the interviews. Oh yeah, sorry, I need to. ChatGPT was like, while you go live, try to remind yourself like if you find yourself kind of going off on a little tangent and trying to do a bunch of research about stuff, like ask yourself if it like has anything to do with the petition, and if it doesn't, like put it on pause and like look it up later. And I'm like, that's good advice. Too bad I'm like that's the most like simplest advice, but um interviews with Korean neighbor. Yeah, okay. I'm glad you brought that up, Dragon, because Um, I think that would be interesting too, because okay, like when all those videos and stuff were coming out, because that's the other thing, like Bryan never made any statements like in public or to the media or anything. Everything that came out was from the prosecution. It was completely slanted, and like they could create whatever narrative they wanted to. But and yet they were the ones that kept asking to seal all of the filings and discovery and stuff. But it's like, yeah, you're leaking all of this kind of like made up information or like non-relevant information to like the media. Like, why? That seems like you are trying to like manipulate a situation. Like, like why are you playing dirty like that? It's like it just doesn't make sense to me. It's like, anyways, but like when different videos would come up of Bryan where we would see like him interacting with someone. So it would be, when he was pulled over in Indiana with his dad when he was driving home from WSU or whatever. And then there was when he was pulled over in Moscow by that like woman cop, and it was like he had stopped in a crosswalk or something. Or no, yeah, like he didn't stop before something, and like people were saying, oh my god, he's like the way he's talking to her, like the female cop was like so rude and demeaning. And then I was like watching it and I was like, actually, like I feel like this is just a dude that is kind of like on the spectrum a little bit. We know he has diagnosed with OCD. We know he's diagnosed with. I mean, I think he has. Yeah, he does. He is diagnosed with. Or they he the like filings that were coming up and the research that I did with those that were getting released in terms of his mental health and like psych evaluations on him. He does have the diagnosis of um, autism spectrum disorder. And I actually did a ton of research. I have so much information on a lot of documents that were released during the huge Jedi dump last summer, like after he took the plea, about like mental health like factors. And I thought it was like super interesting and started to kind of go over it because yeah, I feel like a lot of people that aren't like mental health professionals or whatever are like saying like, oh, like they're putting all these like characteristics onto him, like all these lawyers are like, oh, he's obviously so selfish and narcissistic. I'm like you don't know this guy, like, and you're not really like trained to understand different types of disorders. Like, I mean, he's met with an actual psychologist, and there's like, actual clinical disorders that he has that make him like come off a certain way, like where maybe people would, interpret his kind of aloofness or like inability to like really maybe show that he's having like a deep connection with someone. Like a lot of times that is like what, you know, on the autism spectrum people are. But like I do feel like a lot of, and I actually have done some research on this too, is that a lot of people in prison and the criminal justice system and like people that are found guilty like have are like on the autism spectrum, and like people usually will interpret like their behaviors and their mannerisms, and they'll be like, "What a psycho!" Like, can like look at how like cold he is, and it's like, dude, the guy has like serious like autism, like um so, and the OCD stuff too, because like I feel like that would both of those things would make sense a lot of the conversation. So anyways, that might be good to go over. Also is like that actually might be an interesting live to like review any video that we have of Bryan. Like I don't think it would be too much. Like I think we just have like a handful of videos where, and then maybe like there is some information in the new discovery that he like gives a little bit more of like a peek into some of his, I guess, behaviors and mannerisms and stuff. Anyway, he was friends with. Wait, and then what was the other one? Interview with Korean neighbor. Oh yeah, and then going. Oh yeah, going through all the like all the video footage of BK. Okay, so anywho's, oh wait, I wonder how he learned of the girls. Maybe the lesson is to not post your life on the internet through social media. Well, yeah, I mean, I think that is what a lot of people are kind of, I guess, assuming is that he found the girls like through social media. But I mean, also, I mean, I I don't want to come off like where I'm super biased towards Bryan, but I am feeling like it's important to speak out on some of the things that like aren't shouldn't necessarily be taken as like exact truths that maybe the state has presented or like other people have kind of like theorized about, because the actual prosecution said like during the filing of his his guilty plea, or his plea deal guilty plea deal, they said that he uh oh fuck, wait, what? Oh, that they told him, okay, yeah, that, oh no, what, Bryan, or no, not Bryan. What's the stupid prosecutor's name? Is it Bryan Thompson or something? Is it two Bryans? Um, anyways, the guy that looks like Santa, that was the prosecutor, and he said in court, like this is on record, that they have no evidence that places that connects Bryan to the girls at all. Like they have his history on Instagram, and like didn't he hadn't accessed any of their profiles. And I also think that he um yeah, like think so what, Dragon. Sorry, I'm like honestly I'm really trying not to be like a like um annoying like double advocate where I argue against everything. But I mean, I do think that I mean this is stuff that I have kind of thought about, and I mean, they never proved like how he. I mean, I don't. Yeah, you say like, how did he learn of the girls? And I feel like it was just through like acquaintances. I feel like he was brought together with them somehow. He was connected to these girls through a third person, like a third party. And yeah, because in my opinion, even if they're saying, he is connected to the murders by the fact that he like actually uh, was the person who did the murdering of them. But oh, thank you. Yeah, I think so. Is it? Oh, Bryan Thompson. Okay. Yeah, I was like, it's weird that I didn't remember that there was two Bryans in this, but um, but yeah, like they I think either way that he still got connected. So yeah, if he got railroaded, somehow they are taking. Anyways, that doesn't really make sense. So I'm gonna just stop right there. Okay, so um, for claim number one, it is the so number one is the council's failure to inform petitioner of counsel's failure, so his lawyers uh yeah, failure to inform him of exculpatory discovery received during plea discussions. So that's interesting to me. Um, Namely clumps of unknown hair found in Ethan Chapin's hands, as well as a failure of further inquiry. So, um, oh wait, hold on. Okay, all right, nice. Okay, so like all right, question one. So these are the three questions that I'm going to do for each of these claims. What he's alleging, what facts is he using to point to, uh, or what facts is he pointing to in order to prove what he's alleging, and what questions does this bring up, or what are the things that we don't necessarily know yet, and then what do we know, like what information do we actually have and that we can say for sure like is a fact, and then why this might be significant legally. And then also like at the end I think it would be good to like I'd like to just kind of brainstorm a little bit about um yeah, just exploring these things a little bit more, like what they might actually look like. I mean, I guess it's a little bit, you would call it, what's it called, where you look ahead. It starts with like a P. I don't want to be saying that am like knowing the future or anything like that, or like understand completely what's going on. But I do think that it would be fun to have just brainstorming sessions around that. Um, So here we'll go with the first question. What exactly is he alleging? Okay, Dragon says, if you look at these court TV videos, there are vengeful people who are out for blood, and prosecutors take a crusader mentality, and innocent people go to prison. Yeah, yeah, totally. Um, exactly. Yeah, I completely agree with that. And I feel like it happens a lot. And like I love Dateline, as I'm sure a lot of, true crimers also appreciate a good Dateline story. But that was like when I really started getting into like that was the beginning of, well, I've always kind of been into like true crime, but or like, just kind of like crime stories or whatever. But wait, fuck, I forgot what I was gonna say again. What the hell is wrong with me? Um oh yeah, yeah, yeah. They go on the Crusader. Oh yeah, yeah. Like there's so many. I feel like Dateline has like a bunch of examples of videos of where it's like, in my opinion, totally obvious that this person didn't do it, or that like, how can you actually say this person? How are you trying to argue that this person wasn't mentally insane at the time of the crime? Like, look at them. They're like obviously super insane. You know what I mean? And it would just be kind of like mind blowing that it's. I'm like, why does the prosecution, yeah, why are they taking this crusader mentality, like why are they refusing to like just look at the facts and like try to find like something that's fair and just, instead of just having the idea that we're going to get them. And I think a lot of that might have to do with like getting elected, in certain places. Like, I mean, I think certain like DAs and attorney generals and other judges and stuff are voted in. So um that might have something to do with it too, where they can kind of be like, it's like performative. They can be like, "Oh, I got that," and sheriffs are elected too. Like I'm sure, like they always say there is so much pressure that they get gets put on police departments when there's like a high profile crime, and everyone's like, "Well, is it solved?" And like it does seem like sometimes they will go to extreme like measures to the point of like kind of like being delusional, like actually convincing themselves of shit that's not true. Like it's like how do you not see the reality of the situation? It's kind of crazy to me. That's what's just like concerning and scary about the criminal justice system, is because I feel like everyone's so like incompetent and like biased. But anywhoozles. Okay, so what is he alleging exactly? And I said that he is alleging that his lawyers didn't tell him about exculpatory. So he says exculpatory specifically. That means that it will prove that he's not guilty. Um, Evidence during the plea deals that they had, and so that just makes me kind of wonder, like did this like overlap with receiving discovery? Like, is that what he's talking about? Like, he's saying that this hair that was found in Ethan's hands could be like exculpatory, but I don't think that even if they found out whose hair was in his hands, that that would necessarily be exculpatory of Bryan. Like that could just mean that there were like two killers there. Like just because someone else's DNA is on the scene doesn't automatically mean exculpatory. At least I don't think it does. So I'm kind of wondering like if that's how Bryan's looking at it, or if he um knows of more specific information that happened like kind of behind the scenes of that, because it does really make you question like what was the process there, like and what was the like um chain of custody. And he I get like why wasn't the hair tested? It'll be interesting to get into, and I don't know actually even if this would be relevant necessarily for the post conviction relief, because that almost seems like it's more of an issue of a direct appeal, saying that um, evidence wasn't dealt with appropriately. Like if they knew that they were coming to trial, like in the court's views or eyes, like it would be like, well, you have uh oh yeah, like anyways, sorry, yeah, just the discovery. And if it seems, I think in it seems like maybe if it was like evidence wasn't getting distributed in a fair like amount of time, then that should have, I guess, seemingly been on a direct appeal. But if it actually wasn't and no one said anything, then I feel like it could fall back into this post relief like conviction relief, because um yeah, because I think it would just talk about how that is ineffective counsel. Like if your team like did not further inquire into literally like a chunk of hair in the victim's hand to be tested, and that also brings you to kind of wonder, at least in my mind, and like I don't see necessarily the how this would come up during the like evidence gathering and testimony parts of the um this current case that Bryan just like uh filed. But um yeah, like okay. anyways, yeah, let me know if anyone like has any thoughts about that and like how that would work, because obviously if his counsel is not if his counsel doesn't have enough time to go over evidence and see like, okay, why wasn't this tested, then that is kind of like ineffective counsel. And I wonder like if I'm just wondering when the like defense team actually started getting some of this information, because what Bryan mentioned specifically is that it was during the plea deals. And I'm like, why would evidence be coming out like during the plea deals like that? Like, shouldn't it have already kind of been out there? But because that really doesn't seem fair either. So it's like, how long did Ann Taylor have this unknown like clump of hair that she didn't look into? But and I also wonder like if Bryan is just like watching stuff on the internet and being like, yeah, that clump of hair in Ethan's hand, like I really don't know any details about that. And like I feel like I've heard it from other people, but I do know that even if there's a clump of hair in like Ethan's hand, that doesn't mean that it's exculpatory to Bryan either. So like that kind of like, you know, yeah, makes this case not be as strong, kind of. So wait, what was I just gonna write down? Damn it. Oh well. Hmm. What was I gonna write down? Was it like to look into like the dates of when? Yeah, I'm gonna look into the actual dates. Follow up. Look into the actual dates that those documents were released that include what he's discussing, which is like the analyses, and I guess that would be DNA testing, or and then there's also like I think Brady goes into that too. Um, and that's kind of gets a little too confusing. I'm like, I don't really understand all that, but I think maybe as we get further along into this case, we'll have more time to kind of like start unpacking some more of the specifics that like each of these claims go along with, you know. Um, so yeah, okay, follow up, look, okay, what the fuck, dude? Okay, follow up, look into, oh yeah, when the discovery items involving DNA and hair testing. Look, when the discovery items involving DNA and hair were given or released to public and the defense. Because that will be interesting. That I think that'll tell us a lot too. Okay, so oh wait, okay, so all right. Next question that I'm following for this framework. So what facts does he point to? And it sounds like to me, it seems like he is saying there was unknown hair in Chapman's hand and it wasn't further inquired about. So he's saying that's facts. Like there's a chunk of hair in Ethan's hand and no one tested it and figured out who it was, and no one tried to follow up about why it wasn't tested. So I guess that seems like facts that he's pointing to, at least in this claim. And then what questions does this raise? I think, you know, that kind of makes you come up with a lot of questions. Like I wrote down like when was this discovery received? Like was it actually brand new information when they received it? Like did the council know already like about this and then they like just didn't inform Bryan, or did they not know either, you know? Um, Obviously BK wasn't informed, or maybe he was. Like maybe there's evidence that he actually was informed and was testing. Oh yeah, like even getting to the bottom of like if testing was even um was requested and why or why not it might have been and what does further inquiry mean, which that basically just means that you're, you know, being like, we need to ask more questions about this, which I do feel like there was a lot of evidence that was like that in the pretrial motions and, collecting of whatever, hearings and stuff. And Taylor talked about that all the time. Like, I mean, there was multiple times where she was like, we need a follow-up about this. Like, they didn't give us what they said they gave us. And we need that information in order to move forward with the trial. And then like Hitler and like the prosecution would just like come up with like an excuse about why they couldn't or something like that, you know? Um, yeah, the fact that the school felt the need to destroy the house says a lot. I would have had a purification ritual and would not have destroyed the house. Really? Um, yeah, I mean, I think that that makes a lot of sense that the prosecution, um, or no, not the prosecution. Well, yeah, the state, I would say, goes along with how the university feels too. But it is kind of, it's like bad PR for them. It doesn't look great that they have these like murder houses all over. And it was obviously kind of like just probably a bad vibe. But does that concern you because of not being able to then go and check out the like uh, environment like during a trial, like a jury trial, or do you think it just should have not been torn down because of like the significance of what happened there, or like what are you kind of thinking with that? Because because I think it definitely a purification ritual would be very very appropriate for that house, and even just maybe that space, Um, but I can't say like I wouldn't have wanted to destroy the house because yeah, it was just kind of like a like bad vibe house anyways, even though in the windows all it said was good vibes, which is so weird. But it's not so weird, but it just was kind of eerie, like when because those lights stayed on the whole time. So like when all of those reporters were like standing outside in front of the house for like the first year or whatever that it was happening, you'd always see in the background like this like kind of pink um you know light in the background, and it was from I'm pretty sure it was from Maddie's like good vibes, um like fluorescent light or whatever. Transit. That too, I felt it was wasteful. I have known people who have died in homes. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean that's true. Like we do have like a huge housing problem in the United States. So to be just tearing down houses when people are looking to be living in places doesn't make a lot of sense. And I think like in a way, like, when you do have the opportunity to have someone die in home, like it kind of makes it, I guess if it was on their own terms, like, it depends on whether or not it was tragic or like traumatic, the death, or if it was like maybe more planned or like everyone knew that it was happening, so like there was a family gathering or whatever. But I could see why it would be like powerful to like stay in the areas that you have like ancestors and like loved ones and friends that like I guess their spirits are like so strongly there, you know what I mean? But I think it's like if it depends on if it's like a super traumatic death too. Like my little cousin, he died at like 3 years ago, RIP Noah. And uh he was like 25, and like we all felt so bad because like everyone's like doing all this fentanyl, and like we didn't necessarily know that he was doing drugs or not, but he just got really sick and like then just didn't like, or then, yeah, he started getting really sick and then he died. Like, and it's like, whoa, like everyone was like, what 25-year-old just dies out of nowhere? And it ended up being that he actually had diabetes and it was untreated. He didn't know that he had diabetes. And so he was going into like anaphylactic shock or whatever they call it. And yeah, no, thank you, Dragon. I appreciate that. But but yeah, he had just moved into his own apartment like 2 weeks beforehand, and actually he died on Father's Day, and so people were worried about him because like the last time people had talked to him was on like Friday, when he was saying he was really really sick on Friday, and then on Saturday people hadn't really heard from him, but someone went over and like knocked on his window to see if he was okay because people were just kind of like, okay, like maybe he's just really sick or whatever, and they kind of heard him like groaning on Saturday. And then on Father's Day, the next day on Sunday, he they like ended up, I think his dad, actually his I know his dad went over to the house because he had like an extra spare keys, and people were like, we need to figure out what's going on with him in there. And when he went in there, like he found Noah like had passed, and he had like thrown up a bunch of like, stomach bile and stuff. And then it took us like 6 months to get the results back. And I mean, I feel so guilty about this because everyone just honestly was assuming that it was probably had to do with some types of drugs, but it didn't. It actually was because he had diabetes and just like wasn't treating it. And like, it's just so sad. Like, I feel like, ugh, and like that's like what bothers me too about America and like health insurance. And he's 25. I'm sure like he might have just gotten off of his mom's like health insurance and maybe just wasn't wanting to like follow up and get on a new plan. Like plus insulin would have ended up being like really expensive for him, so I can see why he would want to like avoid that. Any hoozles, all of that to say, and not just like I'm sorry to like trauma dump on you guys about that, but in that house, like that house is really bad vibes because to me, like because there was like such a traumatic thing there. It was like Daisy, like my little, like his sister and his mom Erica, like went in, and it was just sounded so chaotic, and it was like sad because it was just like his first apartment, but it was like also he'd only been there for 2 weeks, so it's kind of like what the hell even is this apartment? How did like Noah die in this like apartment that no one knows about or whatever? I don't know. It's just a weird. But when you're young, yeah, you don't think about that stuff. No, I know totally. Well, and that's what's so sad. It's like, oh my God. Well, and I don't know if you can see, but I have like a diabetes poster in the back for it's like see the signs of what does it say? Type 1 diabetes. So just FYI, little health announcement here. If anyone is out there and is like maybe a young adult and is starting to feel kind of weird and like feeling more sick than you've ever felt before, please, please, please go to the doctor. And specifically, if you are having trouble with frequent urination, excessive thirst, exhaustion, and unexplained weight loss. So, and yeah, poor guy. Um, I don't know that many people with diabetes, but I know a couple, and it really, really does affect like the sugar levels, like affects just how they can even function in the world. So, um, yeah, so RIP Noah, and sorry to go down that little rabbit hole there, but hopefully maybe that might help. That announcement might help someone. Um, okay, so on to the next one. It says, so what do we know about this case? And I say, we're gonna like yeah, this is something I'm gonna have to follow up on and that I talked about before when like kind of looking over this stuff, but it's like when this new discovery came in and actually see the like filings in court of these discovery documents and like what they actually contained and when these people had this information and like what it means. So I really really hope that these will all be public filings and that we will start to see like whatever he feels is the evidence to these claims. Um, so yeah, I don't think we can necessarily say that we um, do know anything yet about that claim. And then what we don't know, and specifically we don't know a lot, like we don't know whose hair that is, I guess, but we don't know like normally what was tested. Pretty much all of the same questions that I just mentioned before. And then wait, okay. And why does it matter legally? And I commented, um, and I'm kind of wondering this too, and I think I kind of came to the conclusion, but let me know if you agree or not, Dragon, or if anyone else that's watching later, like, knows the answer to this, but like the unknown hair is not the equivalent to evidence that's exculpatory. And I kind of touched on that earlier. So like, do y'all agree with me about that? Or is it, is that something that would be exculpatory? I want to get some more clarity on, and like, I also, when reviewing this stuff or like this filing, like I am giving credit to Bryan for being pretty educated. I know everyone is like making fun of his handwriting, but I feel like honestly, like that's kind of another, I wouldn't put, I mean, I guess neurodivergent, spicy people all have kind of different, and we know from Bryan's history that he does have like a history of, well, another disorder. You know what? I'm definitely gonna, oh, that's what I was gonna write down. Okay. Before I forget, hold on. I'm gonna write this down that I definitely need to follow up with the diagnosis information about Bryan and why that is significant to the things that he's displaying in the case. Like, again, I don't want to I'm not trying to come up with like all these excuses and explanations and whatever for Bryan, but I do feel like I am just adding a like alternative perspective that other people aren't taking into account when at least when I'm hearing other people analyze these same factors. So, but wait, follow up with the diagnoses, paperwork, um, and other mental health plannings. Yeah, maybe that is one of the ones I'll be focusing on. And BKs, yeah, because I did do a ton of prep on that last summer, but then it was hard to kind of keep up with it because they just kept dropping so many discovery documents that they were unsealing. It was insane how many documents there are, and and I just started getting overwhelming where I was like, oh my god, I'm over my head, and also when I have like all these thoughts, and I'm just like, oh my god, like I have to be so prepared for the live, and then I just don't end up doing it. So, anyways, I really do want to follow up with, because I think it would be good to go over that, because like I said, it does kind of add at least some context, maybe, or alternative explanations behind what people are saying. But he did have a disorder that has to do with his like motor functioning, and I can't remember what it's called right now. Damn it! But yeah, he has two diagnoses. The autism spectrum disorder. No, he has three. He has the autism spectrum disorder. He has OCD, and then he has the one that I'm talking about right now that I can't remember the name for, that talks about different kind of like motor things that are involved. And that's like what is really interesting about Bryan Kohberger is he does have like a very interesting and unique like dynamic, I feel like, symptoms that are pretty interesting to kind of look at how they might be related to one another, or like how he might have been interpreting them, and like how some of them might have overlapped with one another. And like, because he also had, I don't know if you guys remember, that he had that visual snow problem too, and like he had posted online when he was younger about that, and he was like suicidal about that too. and I did a bunch of note taking and like analyzing of that too. So definitely gonna come back with the next one about with that information. So hold on. Yeah, because diagnoses and people getting all their filings. And what was the other thing I just said? Oh yeah, his visual snow history and other mental health stuff. Or yeah, under other mental health reports, like we have heard that he went to treatment, but again, like I don't think we haven't heard it from the horse's mouth with that, you know. Okay, I am not so I am not opposed to the death penalty, but you better make sure you got this thing right. Well, that's kind of the problem. Like that's what my argument is. Like I'm definitely against the death penalty 100%. Like I don't think that taking anyone's life is okay, especially when it's like sanctioned by the state, especially with how many mistakes we know the state does make and also how much power the state has. So if someone that works for the government or the state like wants to railroad you into like a certain crime or I mean, because actually so I only have like for some reason I did this video last year. It was not popular at all. Like I think it only got like 20 views or something. But I had this. It's this crazy case about a man that was executed down. I have a couple videos about executions and like just how the process goes and like all of the shady stuff behind it. And the video that I made last year was about his name is Khalifa, and he actually what was his full name? I'm gonna write that down too. Follow up about Khalifa. Um, but there was some really shady stuff there about like I mean I seriously just watch the video if you guys are into like conspiracy theories at all because I mean I am not. I don't want to say like I'm a huge conspiracy theorist, but I also am super like aware, like painfully aware of how bullshit the state is and the government and like so it's important to kind of oh thank you dragon, I still like you too. Yeah, just because we disagree doesn't mean that we'll be giving each other the death penalty. But anyways, yeah, okay, Khalifa DP. I'm pretty sure anyways, yeah, I'm pretty sure this governor had something to do with this guy being executed last year on death row down in Missouri named Khalifa. And I'm gonna find that video and maybe try to link it here. Cool. But yeah, and like the other thing that I do think is something to think about with the death penalty that makes me also feel a little bit like I guess pretty strongly against it is, he's saying now that Kohberger is claiming that he was coerced into making this plea, like to pleading guilty. And he's saying that he was and I okay, but I think the way I see it is, and again, like I'm excited and I am very interested to hear if I'm right at all with some of my theories in terms of like how Ann Taylor was like advising him through all of this. But I yeah, like I feel like it's impossible. Isn't like they say like, a guilty plea cannot be coerced. But it's like when you have the death penalty, when you're putting someone on trial for death, like and then you give them a plea deal where you basically say like, hey, like you're guilty. Hey, basically, like if you say that you're guilty, even if you're not, we will not kill you. We will not put you on death row. And I know people are going to be like, well, no, it's to go to trial and then it's figured out if he goes to death row. But like in this situation, he didn't have all of the right, like correct information. Like he didn't, he wasn't receiving the files that he needed to receive to give himself a fair trial, and it was like really screwing him and his team over to like even present any of their theories. Like Hitler really, I feel like, suppressed a lot out of the, and I think it will come out like hopefully when the like we'll see how far it goes up into like different court systems and stuff. But I'm really hoping that it does do something and not just like get a review at the state level and just dropped, because I think it is really worth looking into some of these claims. I mean, there's probably a lot of people that do make up a bunch of stuff, but again, like Bryan doesn't feel to me someone like that. But anyways, that's another reason why I'm kind of against the death penalty, is, or not kind of against, but I'm against, because it's like inherently coerced to plead guilty when you're dealing with the death penalty. That's just another thing. Plus so many other reasons too, but I'll just stop. Sorry, Dragon. I'll get off my soapbox about that. Yeah, it's like you can't like ever, go back on an execution. And we've seen, I mean, in terms of like people that have been exonerated from death row, and even people that have just been exonerated from life sentences, is huge. I mean, it's like seriously something like at least like 10% of cases on death row have been found and taken off of, because they were proven later after all of the trial and stuff to be like because of new evidence or something like that. And sometimes evidence has come out after they've already executed someone, and then it's like, oh my god, shit. I wonder if there is any examples of that specifically. Are there examples of? Okay. So, okay, yeah. So then, blah 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 blah. Okay, yeah. And then also just some other thoughts that I wrote down for this claim one, and then we can move on to claim two. And I feel like I'm talking too much, but whatever. Like, what am I doing right now? Like, why am I worried about it? Thank you so much for being here, Dragon. I appreciate your company, seriously. Um, you're a real one. I like wonder if there's like I wish I could like give away free shit but I don't have anything really to give away. But I mean, I wish I could like somehow like acknowledge the like real ones of, you know, the community here at A Capture Crime. But okay, so just last kind of things I wrote down for this claim number one is I wonder if this overlapped at all with receiving discovery late from prosecution, because I know that like they were doing these huge data dumps right at the last minute, like 2 weeks before trial or something. And then it was expected that the defense had to go through like probably like hundreds of thousands of literal like pages of paperwork digitally to even be able to review what that evidence of from the discovery even was, like at a basic level. Like, so, that I think would also go along. I could see it fitting into what Bryan Kohberger is saying here, which is like, you know, again, like he is saying that his counsel kept exculpatory evidence from him, and like, yeah, that is true. Like, if if the prosecution kept certain discovery items and other potential exculpatory items from the um uh prosecution, then yeah, it is his, like his, he isn't getting his constitutional rights still. Like, I mean, then it is and that is being like ineffective counsel, because like, that is what is happening, is that he's not, because of this, because of that what the prosecution is doing and the kind of their scheming ways, that he did not get effective counsel. And then Yeah, and I'm curious too, things that just come up in my mind is what the actual legal standards are, or were for receiving those data dumps. Like I am kind of curious, like in terms of like specific, you know, timing and like do you need to have all of the evidence in 2 weeks before it goes to trial, or like what are the actual, I guess, laws and rules around that, like what actually constitutes the threshold towards becoming a um to be an unconstitutional or like illegal. And I said, yeah, I would. Okay, this is basically what I just said. I said, I would think that when the defense straight up says they can't review all of the data and the discovery that they had received, and they were still missing and reporting that they were missing portions of the discovery as well, that basically guarantees that the defense counsel is withholding evidence because it wasn't possible to review it all before trial was to take place, just inherently. And then I said that testimony from counsel regarding these allegations would very much help clear up what even truly needs to be proven. Um, so yeah, I think there's a lot. It is like kind of a waiting game at this point with some of those. So okay, so then we're done with claim number one, and let me know if you guys like have any thoughts or opinions on that, and then we'll go into claim two, and I'll try to be quicker with this one. I'm sorry. Um, so yeah, claim number two, basically he is, so again, like using this little framework for analyzing these claims. Basically, what exactly is he alleging and claiming? And in the second claim, he is talking a lot about coercion and disinformation. So he's basically saying his lawyers told him, and even he says convinced him, like they actually talked him into it. I feel like that's kind of what convinced means, right? They like talked him into like the fact that his actual guilt or innocence did not matter when considering a plea deal. Like that was an exact quote that he said. So he straight up says he was advised to lie. Like that to me is super significant. And like even when I was like reviewing some other like legal analyses on the filing and stuff like earlier this week, um, everyone was like advised to lie. They were like, you know, that would be if he actually, if that actually happened, his defense is going to be in big trouble because that is the big no-no. Like you cannot advise your client to lie on a plea deal. But you know, I I kind of explained before and earlier, I do feel like you if you are going to be a adequate or even, a just and um like fair defense counsel, like if you want what's best for your client and you know that he's like the information that they have at this point for the trial, he's going to be found guilty and he's going to go to death row. And so it would be advisable for him to, even though he's innocent, to take the guilty plea because um it will, yeah, well, they said, basically he said that they coerced him by telling him death row was imminent. And to me, it kind of sounded like he was like alleging that they were almost in a way like threatening him or trying to scare him. And also that he says that the counsel or his counsel told him, and he was advised, that this was a legal victory, like lying. And that was part of the coercion, was to say like, hey, like this is a legal victory. Like if you, even though you're innocent, if you plead guilty and you stop getting put up for the death row and you just have life without parole and you don't have to deal with life or deal with the death penalty, then that is a legal victory. But so yeah, I just wonder because and I thought like client and attorney privilege was like a thing, and so can they really know what the client and attorney talk about? Like that's why I feel like I would feel safe advising a legal client. I mean, I'm not a lawyer, and it seems like that's probably a good thing I'm not a lawyer, but or maybe not. I don't know. But I feel like it would since it's like what is it called? Secret material. Like no one else can find what was said between you and your like defense counsel. So I would think that the job of the defense attorney would be to advise their client of the best way to go about things, and that would be, hey, like I don't want you to be put to death, and even though you're innocent, if you take this plea deal, like we can move forward where you're not going to be put to death in the meantime while we try to get all of the rest of this sorted out. Like that's why part of me even feels like I wonder if Ann Taylor and like the defense counsel like did kind of maybe yeah like recommend or advise that he breaks some of these rules, and maybe they didn't think that it would be coming out. But also like I wonder how they would deal with that, like I mean if it is protected, I mean obviously Bryan's bringing it to the surface and he's saying like I want people to see what the interactions were between me and my counsel, but like also can we use that information against Ann Taylor, because really we shouldn't be able to see that information, and it was for the betterment of our client. So that it's just like kind of a weird ethical crossroads. Let me know if you guys have any like thoughts or opinions on kind of yeah that juxtapose or paradoxical whatever. um okay, so then what facts does he point to? And I don't really know if he points to any facts. Like, it sounds like the facts that he's pointing to is these discussions that took place. He's saying it was a fact that the discussion took place, and his parents were there, and his family was there at the time, and they will also testify to the fact that it's a fact that this was said to them. So maybe that is the facts that he's kind of pointing to, or we'll find out. It says, then what questions does this raise? And yeah, I have a lot of questions about that. It's kind of like, um, wait, okay, yeah. So yeah, did they actually tell him that? Like, I am very, very curious about, like, I just kind of went over like what those conversations actually look like. I'm like really interested to know. And I think it would be like a really interesting dilemma, like ethical dilemma to go over and consider, like if like the situation that I just explained like does occur or did occur. Um and yeah, I'm curious about like what a legal victory means, and like that to me just sounds super subjective. I mean, I know that Bryan's saying that he was coerced, so it's like they're kind of just like edging him on with like these different things, like like hey, it doesn't matter if you're actually innocent, like this is better for you, and hey, like you know um this is a legal victory. So but it's like who gives a shit? Like I mean, it's yay a legal victory for like lawyers and stuff, but for Bryan this is like actually a case about his life. Like I mean, that's the way that I would look at it. I'd be like, I don't give a fuck if it's like a legal victory. I don't want to die, or like I still think life without parole is a um is not a legal victory or whatever. Yeah, exactly, Dragon lawyer. I know that's why. What's that quote that Shakespeare always says about um like fuck every lawyer or something like that? Sorry, I'm gonna ask ChatGPT. But yeah, they've always kind of had a bad rap for them, and I don't completely understand why, but I do. Like I definitely understand it because of, I guess, the dark side of things when it comes to lawyers. Like I appreciate lawyers that are like Ann Taylor and like really trying to fight like for truth and fairness, but then when it comes to lawyers that are um, willing to like lie and cheat and make it, yeah, just a game and manipulate and just shady, like play it shady. And, it's like, this is actually people's lives and actually our justice system too. It's like, yeah, it doesn't necessarily mean it's a victory for you if you're sending all these people to like, prison that shouldn't be there, or you're overlooking really important information and maybe not actually like having everyone be able to take accountability for all of it that we like are finding out they have to do. Like right now, if I mean, it sounds like everyone does really feel like there is a wait, fuck, no, I forgot what I was gonna say. Okay, well, anyways, so and then I say I can kind of possibly see how and why his counsel might have gone about things he is alleging. Yeah, so that's kind of the example that I just gave. And then yep. And yeah, okay, so that is claim number 2. So let me know what you guys think about that and like how that might be how might that stand up in trial or whatever, or during this like forward civil case movement of this. Okay, so the final claim is claim number 3, and it is okay. So what exactly is he alleging in this claim? And he loves Shakespeare. Nice. Oh my gosh, I kind of, I didn't I was not super into Shakespeare because I was like, oh great, like some fucking another white guy from olden days that talks funny is like telling all the stories or whatever. But then I have a lot of like friends that were in theater and like they're all obsessed with Shakespeare, and a lot like actually my best friend that just got back yesterday that I mentioned at the beginning of this live, he has acted like in over like 20 Shakespeare plays. And he's like a regional actor or whatever, and so he's really good at Shakespeare, and so I've managed to go and actually see a couple of Shakespeare plays, and every time I'm like, holy shit, this is a really good story. I'm like, wow, like that was written so well, or like what a like interesting way to like present or think about things, and which is kind of funny. I don't know, like it's like, well, yeah, it's Shakespeare. I guess there is a reason why there's all this hype around him. So I guess I was just being a little bit close-minded about Shakespeare. So I'm glad I learned to leave that behind. What was I gonna? Oh yeah, I was gonna ask ChatGPT. Wait, what was I gonna? Fuck, what was I gonna ask ChatGPT? Did I write it? No, that's annoying. Well, all right, whatever. Wait, whatever, doesn't matter. Okay, so, oh, that's what I was going to chat GPT is that quote, the Shakespeare quote about lawyers. All right, it is. He's thinking. What's that other quote that's like, eat the rich? I kind of like that one too. Oh, here it is. The Shakespeare quote is, the first thing we do, let's kill all the lawyers. And that is Dick the Butcher from Henry VI, Part 2, Act 4, Scene 2. It says it is often used as an anti-lawyer joke. That's where I was coming from. But in context, it is spoken by a rebel plotting social chaos. Oh my God, that's like kind of where like my background is or whatever. Not background, but like kind of my vibe. It's like kind of my vibe. It says suggesting lawyers and the rule of law stand in the way of tyranny. Oh my God. This is kind of crazy right now. I don't know. Maybe I'm like too tired and I'm like thinking about things strangely, but isn't that kind of funny about like the conversation that we just had about like the government and like how lawyers can be so evil and like screw the government basically? Well, I no, see, yeah, that's not that crazy because that's like what he meant. That's why I brought it up, is because we were talking about that. So my bad. But anyways, all right. So claim number 3 is what is he exactly alleging? So he says that so basically there's two different things that he says in this claim. One is that there's problems with the way that life without parole was represented to him, and issues with the promises that he was given regarding the certain like things that he would be afforded on life without like getting taking the sentence of life without parole versus him being on the death penalty. So he says gross misrepresentation of and promise about life without parole, and then gross misrepresentation of death row um, in Idaho. And so the facts that he presents to argue this argument is so yeah, okay, I guess we're not for sure positive about we're not positive about all the facts in this case or any facts in this case, but what he is alleging right here is that okay, this is kind of just what I put down, but he's basically toyed with, or in a way, like, I don't want, it's not that, like, it's not as heavy or it's like as serious as threatening him, but it is basically being like using scare tactics to be like, oh, it's like scared straight, like, you don't want to be in here. You know what I mean? Like, look at how bad this is. And almost like two, they were telling him about what his life would be like immediately following him taking this guilty plea, and how that would look differently from what they were describing on death row. And so, and I have some, like, I took some notes on this one, but so I'm gonna get into it a little bit, but I'll get to that in a second. But I said, okay, in my opinion, it sounds like he thinks people from the DOC took his counsel on a tour of the conditions of death row and showed them this shitty, scary, like horrible conditions of living in an 8x8 cell on death row. And but it sounds like um yeah, it sounds like a lot of that happened and took place in front of his family again with his defense counsel. So again, this is another like instance where I'm really interested to hear kind of like what these, I guess, like testimonies will end up being, or like what they each kind of end up claiming about each of these um like petition claims or pleas or whatever, because um yeah, it's just um yeah. Um okay, and then what questions does this raise? Um, I said it what would this all have looked like? Like, what did they say it would be for each of the housing assignment pieces? Because I think that that's what he's talking about there, because there's, different levels of um like housing that it's like it's not housing. I guess you wouldn't consider it, maybe. Well, I guess maybe you would consider it housing, but basically it's like a classification system about, and it's like how they categorize it within the prison system. That's why I like kind of know a little bit extra information about this, because I have worked with people that are in similar settings that it appears and sounds like Brian is in right now. So, and I think might know a little bit of like where what he's referring to when he's talking about all of this. So I'll get into the deets about that in just a second. But yeah, and then I say, yeah, what did they say it would be like for each of the housing classifications? And it's also interesting because it's like, I mean, like through the law, and this is what I found out when I did some research on what the um what he might have been talking about in terms of like death row and life without parole, just like knowing what I know about kind of the housing situation there. And yeah, like I'm just wondering what they told him it would be like for each classification system. And like, because a plea doesn't change like how you're classified in terms of like housing. So any different factors can contribute, or I guess are a part of how they decide where people are classified in order to live. And that has to do with security levels. So, for example, if you've heard of like, there's like maximum security prisons, there's medium security prisons, there's, um, is there like anything after a medium? I guess I don't think in Minnesota we have anything under a medium security prison, but um we have medium level security or classification, and then we have high level security, like highly controlled like security systems and housing, and and then there's also like other classifications in terms of where you're housed if you're physically ill, and then also like where you are um okay, like I'll get in because I have this all kind of written down and I don't know, I don't, for some reason, yeah, it's like I will get into this in just a second, but yeah, and I'm also curious like what he is experiencing now. And I think I kind of came to a conclusion, or like I have a theory about what he's experiencing now just from what we've seen come out in terms of reporting. And we have gotten a lot of kites that we've seen kites that he's sent out, like um, having concerns about his housing classification and like the services that he's receiving. And so we do have kind of a clue of like what it looks like for him right now. And I'm just interested to know exactly what it does look like. And I have, yeah. And then also, who gave who a fabricated tour. That's the part that sounded kind of weird to me too. He's like, what did he say? He was like, um, it says a gross misrepresentation of death row in Idaho, including an elaborate fabricated story of counsel's horrific experience touring an actual 8x8 death row cell, all communicated to petitioner and his family, allegedly by IDOC through counsel, thus constituting threats and promises that induced a plea agreement. But it's like interesting because what the hell is he talking about there? I'm like, he just got a little dramatic there. It's like, I don't know. I mean, maybe he's really upset about the fact that they really worked this up to him about this, but it just seems so like kind of random or like such a thing to be. But yeah, like to me, I'm like, so it doesn't sound like they gave Bryan a tour. Like it sounds like the Idaho Department of Corrections gave Bryan's defense counsel a tour, basically being like, trust us. He's gonna want to take the death. He's gonna want to get the death penalty off the table. He will absolutely want to agree to this plea deal because here, let me go and show you like what he will actually have to live in for the next, until we kill him in like 25 years or whatever. So it sounds like that's what Bryan is saying happened. So like, did Ann Taylor and like the rest of the defense counsel go and hang out with some fucking dumbass COs from, you know, the death row prison out in Idaho, which is the Idaho Maximum Security Institution or something like that. And but yeah, yeah. Anyways, it just sounds like kind of like a peculiar um situation to me. That doesn't seem like a super strong argument, but in reality, it could end up being one of his actual more legally strong arguments, because I think some of the complaints that he's been making with the kites and um, different requests for changing the classification of housing and stuff is that he's like not being treated up to like par or the right standards of the Idaho Department of Corrections, and also the like federal expectations of how we treat and what we give prisoners, or what we allow prisoners. Like for example, we can't coerce them and lie to them to get them to take a guilty plea when they're innocent, you know? Um, okay, so then what? Okay, what do we know right now? So I say we know he thinks because of these promises and threats that he didn't, or no, that he decided to take the plea deal and he would not have done so. He's saying that he would not have taken that plea deal without this kind of conniving that he's saying happened on the state side and with the defense. And he, um, okay, yeah, so wait, I think that all right, so yeah, what we don't know is kind of the stuff that I just went over in terms of like what his living looks like now, what he was told, like what it normally looks like. But I did do some research, so I don't know. This might be interesting to just kind of review real quick, and then I think I'll probably be done like in the next like I don't know. I don't want to put a time limit on myself, but I would say like another 20 minutes or 30 minutes of like actually getting through this whole outline. Yeah, let me know like what you guys think, or if you think this is like an interesting dragon. Yeah, you think legally he will lose. Yeah, I think everyone's thinking that. But I also think that I feel like we're gonna see it go through different stages, and people are gonna be real annoyed because it is gonna keep going, I think, through different steps of the proceedings, and people are gonna be super annoyed, but I think it will be really, really interesting. Just, I mean, because I mean, we already know Hitler appointed him a council, but I mean, like, thank God if he would have denied that, that would have been some bullshit. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, it's kind of pathetic that I'm like, oh wow, like Hitler was like, you know, he had justice enough or was just enough to, um, actually give him a lawyer that he requested because of like unconstitutional factors relating to his guilty plea. And like I'm impressed by that. Like that should be just like, you know, basic level expectation of people. Like, yeah, of fucking course he should get appointed lawyer, like a lawyer. That would, you know what I mean? I mean, some of these judges just blow my mind. Like the Gull, uh, Judge Gull, or no, Judge C Gull. Remember her from Delphi? Oh my God, and Bev from the judge from the Karen Reed case. Those are two examples of judges that are fucking assholes and unbelievable some of the findings that they made. And I would put Hitler in that category. I mean, I think he presented it in less of a like emotional way. Maybe he wasn't presenting as catty with these decisions or whatever than maybe the other two judges that I just referenced. But I think he's just as much of a dick, if not even bigger one. And he was straight up mean to the defense counsel sometimes too. And I feel like he had too much. He wasn't being like humble enough to admit that like maybe he should find out a little bit more information about this topic instead of just assuming that the defense is making it up, especially when this is a death penalty case, you know? Um, so yeah, and blah blah blah. Lies about the conditions. Okay, yeah. It says, why does it matter legally? If he was basically coerced and manipulated with lies about the conditions of his plea deal and other factors that were supposedly going along with his plea, then yeah, if that's not illegal, it definitely should be. And let's see. So I think I have like a hypothesis about what he might have been referring to in this claim, and I think, yeah, you still don't trust the government. Of course not. Yeah, I don't either. But yeah, that's why I have a problem with the death penalty, is because you really just can't trust the government. And like we can't give them the power to like kill us, you know? But anyways, so Leela just came up. She wants to say hi. Leela, you want to say hi? Say hi to everyone. Look at how nice she looks. Oh my goodness. Your blowout looks great. Yeah, embarrassingly, like the groomer, because I brought her to the groomer yesterday, she was like, yeah, she was pretty dirty. I was like, oh, really? She's like, yeah, I had to like wash her like 4 times. I was like, oh, I was like, well, that's kind of embarrassing. Like, she only just like hangs out in my house. But she was like, oh no, my place is, dirty too. And I'm like, yeah, okay. But yeah, so that was kind of funny. But yeah, okay, I'm gonna pull up. I got some information. This is one that I did a little bit further research on in terms of what I thought they might be. Um, okay, so here we go. I'm gonna share this. I'm gonna share. Okay, so this is a response from ChatGPT about. I was asking for ChatGPT to find specific details that are public knowledge about the housing classifications, and kind of what it looks like within the Idaho Department of Corrections. So I'll just kind of like do a brief overview of the information that it was given to me in response to this. And it says he did not become an IDOC prisoner until after sentencing in July of 2025, which is the first time he started sending complaints in kites. That was the first time we started seeing him like being like, what the hell is going on? Like, get me out of here. This is not what they said it would be. And that, at least in my, like, that's kind of how I'm seeing it. And public reporting says he was then transferred directly to the Idaho Maximum Security Institution, the IMSI, near Kuna. And that is the maximum security institution, like I was talking about, where there's maximum and then there's medium. And there is like different when you, like I said, at a maximum security prison, it's a lot more secured. Like, it's a lot more controlled movement. Like, you are not given as many freedoms in terms of like what types of programs you can take, or if there's like employment opportunities, or like if you even can live in a like cell block, like a normal cell block with other people. Like, and so in the maximum security, the only one that they have in Idaho, this one that Bryan is at, they have specific housing units. They usually call them like cell blocks. And so he apparently is in the J cell block. And it sounds like 3 tiers, which I'm like, well, how old is, I'm interested to see it. If there's not usually 3 tiers, only like really old school prisons have 3 tiers, because it's like a security hazard to have people up on the third tier, because yeah, there's just too much shit that can go down up there without people knowing. But he is in the J block, and the J block is part of is death row. That is where that's like where death row is housed in this specific cell block. And then there's also like 2 other tiers that house people with security concerns, people with like, well, I think they listed here. So they say J block. J block is not merely the prison's generic maximum security housing wing. Yeah, he is in long-term restricted housing. So that is like, that's basically, to me, that sounds like the equivalent to death row, long-term restricted housing. And it sounds like he was told that like he would avoid the conditions on death row if he pled guilty, even though he was innocent. But that now it turns out he's actually still being treated and is housed in the um same exact cell block with the same exact restrictions as people that are on death row, but he's just a different classification. And that's the thing with, if the defense counsel, or even if the like Idaho Department of Correction Workers like were saying like, hey, this is how it's going to be for you, like we'll promise you that you're not going to be in death row conditions, like you're going to be in the general population, like you're not going to be in a high security moved like facility, you'll be able to like hang out with people, like because in the like maximum security prisons, like you don't usually get to like it's all controlled movement, and the ones that are on J block are extremely controlled, where they're actually, if they're ever taken out of their cells, they are what's it called, what am I, constrained, they're in constraints, so it's kind of a big deal. It's like very constrictive, but like if you're in general population on life without parole, like you don't have to do that at all. Like you can walk from one like cell block down to the chow hall and like yell at people down the hallway that you walk by it, like or whatever. But in this facility that he's at, is not that. He is like alone in his cell for 23 hours a day. He has no contact with like other people. Like listen to what they report here. Okay, so it says Kohberger was described as being, okay, actually, I'm sorry. Like, I am a cigarette smoker and I'm kind of craving a cigarette, but I like don't want to smoke on camera. So I'm gonna just like for the next 3 minutes take my face. So sorry that you won't be able to look at my face for the next 3 minutes, but um that is why I'm gonna like just remove myself. Okay, so let's see. Um, okay, blah 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 blah. That's okay. Anyway, so I said my hypothesis regarding what he may actually be referring to is the housing classification versus council promising anything about those types of conditions without actually being able to control anything like that. So I'm saying like the classification of prison housing is up to security staff. Security staff is different from court staff. Security staff overpowers everyone in prison. They are definitely, you know, the ones that make the final calls on everything. It's all about security. And which is good, you know, I'm glad, but also it's like really annoying, like the way that they go about it sometimes, and because they can be such dicks, you know. Um, and but if Bryan was told, you know, through Idaho Department of Correction, oh, so okay, oh, that's the part then. He's saying, okay, because yeah, because it was an issue where it was kind of like, well, but legal counsel and the court systems literally don't have a say in anything that has to do with the security classifications of prison. Like once he takes a plea, he is now in the prison system, and it's up to the authorities in charge of the prison system as to how he will be treated and how he will be housed. And like maybe there might be like a mental health staff person that is involved with decisions and stuff, but just to add in like side, you know, comments, basically it's, you know, the security staff being like, this is what we're doing. Even though you're like, that is a horrible idea for this person. But anyways, and it's interesting that he is saying that the Idaho Department of Corrections employees gave his counsel a tour of death row, and they said that this would be his like imminent fate. But if he took the plea deal, that would not be what he would experience in prison, and that he would be afforded all these other privileges and freedoms that life or that like life on death row wouldn't. But come to find out, well, fuck, he's like, no, I'm seriously on death row. I mean, I might not be legally or officially on death row, but I'm literally in the same exact cells and the same exact tiers with all of the same like restrictions and like security constraints and stuff as everyone on death row. So even though like, so that shouldn't have even been a part of his plea negotiations, is that coming up. And I think, you know, that's at least worth bringing up and bringing into attention, that it's kind of like, well, maybe he was kind of like coerced a little bit. I mean, if they're telling him information that isn't even possible and that didn't end up being true, like maybe he was kind of like bamboozled into this, you know? So, anyways, wait, uh, oh, okay. All right, cool. Yay. All right. Well, that is the three claims. Woo woo. If they misled him, yeah, yeah, I feel like again we have to wait to see like what actually comes out with evidence of what actually happened. Like he is just alleging these things, like we are gonna have to end up, or they will, in whatever they're gonna, I don't really exactly know what proceedings are happening next, but um I think what we can start to look for, well actually I do, and that is the next part of my um outline, and this is my last page of my outline, everybody. Oh yay. Okay, so oh wow, it's almost 10. That's okay, but that's still pretty early at 10. Again, Fun Day Friday. Thank you so much again, Dragon, for hanging out with me on Friday. Maybe I should do like Fun Day Fridays like every Friday. I need to get better about being consistent about a weekly live, and maybe even 2 weekly lives or something. Well, let's start with 1 at least and see if I can start meeting that. But so all right, so here is next steps is, oh wait, that is not that. Uh, um, oh, okay. Wait, share this tab. Okay, I'm gonna share that tab, and then I'm gonna, and then I'm going to go there. All right, so um, like I said, there was some movement this week after the petition was filed, and that was on, I believe, Wednesday, maybe even Tuesday. Judge Hippler made an order to appoint Bryan Kohberger a assistance of counsel to help him. Oh, Fridays are good. Okay, cool. I feel like Fridays are good too. Like they're just kind of exciting because you're like, yay, the week is done. Like you don't feel like pressure for shit that's coming up tomorrow, you know? So it's kind of like you can let loose a little bit. And then also it's like a fun night to like, if I go live like, evening time, if I'm done by 10 or 11, then I might even have a chance to still maybe like hit up the town, not really hit up the town, but maybe go to karaoke or something. Um, so yeah, so what Hippler, okay, so this is what the case information from the civil case that is now opened for Bryan. This is the information for that. And we can see that judicial officer is Hippler. Like I went over here that it's a post-conviction act proceeding. It's active and pending. And it says active attorneys is lead attorney, state public defender. Wait a second. Do you think that means I wasn't? Is there just a lead attorney for like every court case then? Or are they actually saying like the lead of the public defenders? Because isn't that what Ann Taylor's job was? Was she was kind of the head of all of the state of Idaho's public defenders? And if that's true, if she was the lead attorney, or if she is the lead attorney here, that makes me curious if then she's going to be the one working with Kohberger again. But there's no way, because that would be such a conflict of interest, right? Like I would think that'd be a conflict of interest because he's reporting things about her. Like that would be weird for her to be like, let me help you file stuff against me. But yeah, as we can see, that here are kind of the events that have happened so far in the case. So new case filed on Monday, civil case information sheet, and then his submitted petition for post-conviction relief. Oh, it looks like actually Hippler did it on the same day. It says on the 27th, the a motion and affidavit were put in for the support of appointing counsel to him, and that was put in by Hippler. And a comment of that says for permission to proceed on partial payment of court fees prisoner. I have no idea what that means, but I don't think it really matters probably too much what we're talking about, at least right now. And also a comment of the motion and affidavit that in support of appointment of counsel. So basically, very generally that just means that he Hippler has appointed counsel to help Bryan with this post-conviction case and petition. And so now it's going to be up to the appointed counsel to evaluate the current petition filing, and then if it's appropriate, or as they see appropriate, um, working under Idaho's post-conviction procedures, which is like what the public defender would have like knowledge of, and to help like really narrow things down and grabbing other information that could help Bryan in what he's alleging. So if it's appropriate, the council will evaluate and amend or supplement the petition to update new information that they're working together, that they brainstormed with together, like Bryan and his appointment of counsel. So that's kind of where things are at right now. Like, it sounds like he now is probably going to be starting to work with his newly appointed defense counsel, and the yeah, I think I don't know for sure what it would look like. I really hope that they unseal these or that they don't seal these meetings or that they are public hearings and stuff because I would just hate it if this shit is still behind closed doors because that is how we got here in the first place. Like seriously. Like literally. But I think that we will probably end up or hopefully maybe end up seeing filing of new evidence. So like supplemental documents or data that maybe Bryan now might submit with the help of his lawyer and also other um, future filings and potential hearings to go over motions that will be coming up in the future that we can't know right now what's necessarily going to be showing up, but we can be looking for the next steps will be seeing that stuff come up in the court. So we'll be keeping an eye on the court docket for sure. And yes, oh my gosh, that was kind of a lot, but I really, really appreciate you, Dragon. And I appreciate anyone else that is maybe listening to the replay. I hope that this wasn't a super boring live. I'm going to plan on for sure coming live again next Friday, but I'm going to say no guarantees that I'm going to try very hard before next Friday to do another live. And I'm in the middle of, well, so yeah, here's kind of to conclude, to wrap things up here. So, well, first of all, I want to make an announcement, and it is kind of exciting for me, and I want to thank everyone that helped me get here. But I have been trying to reach, like for the last like year, I have been pretty much stuck at 420 followers around, and it's just been like, every video I'm like, all right, this is the video. I'm gonna hit 500. Let's do it this time, and then it's like maybe 3 people subscribe or something. I'm like, God damn it. And so it's been the last year that my goal has been to just reach 500 subscribers. I only needed like, I started like a year ago, only needing 80 more subscribers. So it took me a year, but last week I crossed that threshold into 500. I'm now at 507 followers. So that makes me feel very good to finally have met my first goal for subscribers. And so thank you to everyone that has done so. And if you are here and you're not subscribed, please subscribe. That would be very exciting or helpful for me. And let's see what else. Oh, and yeah, I would say to definitely reply in the comments. I'm starting to get a little schedule where I'm forcing myself for like 3 hours once a week to just look at my comments because honestly, I get kind of anxious because people are so fucking mean in the comments sometimes. But also, I understand and know that a lot of the comments are also like the way that I really find people to connect with and share like thoughts and hear just constructive criticism about and all of that. So anyways, I'm forcing myself to read all of the comments, the good and the bad, and I'm going to put my big girl pants on, and I'm not going to give a fuck what the losers that are saying mean things to me are saying in the comments unless it's legitimate, like, and I can actually do something to change it and it would be worthwhile. Then I thank you for your suggestions. Anyways, I'm being like too kind of weird about that, but yeah, let me know like how you guys think about like how this live went, like the topic. If there's like, please like say if there's anything that you would prefer to see in content or like a different way to go about getting this information out or doing lives or even things that I should be talking about. Like if there's any thoughts or opinions on that, please share. I would love to hear what you guys' thoughts are. And okay, so what I personally have coming up, like I said, expect me next Friday for the next live and maybe even another live in between. But I'm in the middle of working on this pretty exciting video that have been really wanting to get out about updates in the Sarah Grace Patrick case. and there was actually some pretty significant and disconcerting, like, I guess, changes at the last hearing for Sarah Grace Patrick that concerned me a lot, or that I guess, disagree with. So I'm not going to come out with a video and be like, this is all wrong, but I'm just going to present, like a logical presentation of what is happening and like what that means for Sarah, because her court or her case is coming up closer and closer. Actually, that's something I need to look up. I don't, it might be April 3rd that her fucking trial is supposed to start, but maybe that's just some other motion or something. But it might be beginning of jury selection for, so definitely keep your eyes open for Sarah Grace Patrick case. And also I have been keeping up with the David updates because I've been following David a lot, and he just had this pretrial hearing in motion, or like whatever it is it hearings? Yeah, pretrial hearings, basically and there was some new information that was released that we didn't know about, and I think that it's enough to like be significant enough to at least shortly address or point out, like in a short video. And then talk about next steps with David there too. And also, like, I have been kind of following the Lindsay Clancy trial, and I was considering just actually live streaming it because it is an option to live stream every day. But then I was starting to catch up on, like, I didn't do it the first day or the second day, and then I was starting to kind of like catch up every now and then, and I was like, holy shit, this case is depressing as hell. And I like definitely have opinions about it and thoughts and beliefs, but this trial apparently is supposed to be going on for another 4 to 6 weeks, which is like unimaginable, honestly, to think about why they are like really just milking this thing for all of its tragic worth. It's crazy. Like, and this case is really, I guess, interesting to me, and like, I guess, relevant to me in terms of mental health and psych background. And I have definite opinions on the way that our country deals with not guilty by reason of insanity, and how they determine someone that is legally insane or not, or knows right from wrong and can plan and stuff like that. So yeah, I do want to make some commentary on that, but I think I'm going to hold off on that just because we do know that the case will be taking a long time, and I feel like the Sarah Grace Patrick case is a little bit more pressing. And oh, thanks, Jay. And yeah, I hope to see you at the next one too. And I do, yeah. And what you said here, you feel really sorry for the little girl. I completely agree. Like, and I try to focus on stories of people that are, like, I guess you would say disadvantaged or underserved populations, people of color, like people that have disabilities or stuff like that. And so I tried to make sure that I'm like, covering more cases than not that include those types of people or whatever. Especially because people of color like really have a hard time like getting any attention in the true crime community, and I have a couple of thoughts about why that might be, but that's for a different day, I think. But yeah, anyways, I don't know why I started talking about that when you're talking about Sarah, but I don't want people to be like, oh, of course, like, it's boring, like, there's just a little girl that, of course, like, a white girl, people are going to pay attention to this case and think it's a big deal because she's like a young, cute white girl. But actually, I have been following this case kind of from the beginning, right when I was like heard that she had gotten arrested. And oh, I actually have a video that I made about it, about how my opinions about what they're saying about Sarah and like the things that they were, I guess, alleging about her, and it's really messed up. It's super messed up. So I feel super bad for her too, and I'm really interested to see how things go. And it's interesting that it's down in Georgia because for some reason I just don't trust Georgia to be that good at this type of thing. So I'm definitely keeping the fingers crossed. But what will come out in my next video that I do on SJP or SGP, which I'm calling that trial, is going over what the updates were at the last hearing and what her new lead defense counsel reported in that hearing that is really concerning, and then the outcome of that. And it's all very interesting and unfortunate. So definitely keep an eye out for that. Those are mostly the things that have been taking most of my time in terms of research and stuff. Um, but yeah, let's hope that, justice for everyone we all deserve justice, whether or not you're a little white girl or you're, a Sherpa or a 80-year-old black man on death row, blah, blah, blah. So I feel like, yes, I like things to be fair, but in this case, it's pretty crazy with what they're alleging with Sarah, and like just the jumps and leaps that they're making to just accuse this girl. I mean, it's all like hypothetical stuff. It's like, I'm like, you're just assuming that. Like, that doesn't even make sense. These are not facts. These are just opinions. You know what I mean? But okay, yeah, you're like, stop talking. So, yeah. All right, yes, thank you so much, Dragon, and anyone else that is here. I appreciate you, and I love you all, and hopefully see you next time. Peace and love. Bye.